Millions of gallons of water that we treat every day.
Antibiotics, blood pressure medication, and hormones.
Hermaphroditic fish.
Superbacteria.
What are the common things that you would see in a personal care product that we should be aware of? What exactly goes on from the time you flush to the time you get to here at the wastewater treatment plant?
The truth is, an awful lot goes on besides just flushing. Dishwashers, washing machine.
Garbage disposal?
Garbage disposal is a big one. All of those things that contribute sand and different things to what makes up wastewater. All of that stuff comes down the pipelines to the plant, goes into a process where we first separate out sand and grit, then it comes into a biological process. And this is microorganisms breaking down what's in the water, capturing what they can, making it settle out.
Like composting.
Just like composting, It's the same thing that goes on in the soil. It's the same thing that goes on in a river. So a whole wastewater plant is just a process like what happens in a river, but we put it in a much smaller space and make it happen a lot faster. Within a day, we take what was wastewater, leaving homes and businesses, and turn it into something that is incredibly clean, meets drinking water standards, and put that back into the river.
Awesome.
In Summit County, we treat to a much higher standard. We've been doing phosphorus removal for many, many years.
And what is that exactly?
Phosphorus is a nutrient that comes in the wastewater, and it creates algal blooms in lakes and streams. So we remove that extra phosphorus. And by doing that, it keeps the rivers clean and keeps the lakes blue. Lake Dillon's very pretty, as you know. So what we have is basically a water treatment plant that's been built onto the end of a traditional wastewater plant. And this process we're in now is basically like a water plant in a big city. And we add a little bit of chemical and separate out that phosphorus and then put the water out into the river.
There must be some things that an average person in Summit County can do to make it easier on your end to help you out.
Sure.
I mean, like the things we put down the sink or into our washing machines or whatever. Because I know there's phosphorus-free stuff.
Yeah.
There's also pharmaceuticals that are a big problem. So what do you suggest for the homeowner?
Well, for one thing, people have, I think, come a long way in not using a toilet or a sink as just a trash can. I mean, if you put trash down the drain, it comes all the way down here, we separate it out and put it into a dumpster again.
Okay.
So it's easier to just keep it at home and skip a step. But then when it comes to some things, we can't treat for them. There's a biological process. So if you put down certain chemicals that interfere with that biological process, it can disrupt this whole thing that we do, and we quit making the water clean, and that's really bad. Example is chemicals that should be going to the Household Hazardous Waste Collection Program instead of going down the drain. Things like pesticides and herbicides and paints and things. Right, those things should never go down the drain. Anything that is corrosive, anything that, extra sand and so on can even be rough on the equipment. But the scariest thing is the stuff we can't remove at all. After you come through this biological process and through this tertiary process for phosphorus removal, we're putting out water that's incredibly clean. But at a few parts per billion or trillion even, there are things that go right through the process. We send them down the drain, they go out into the river, and can still affect the fish out there. So that's where we're talking about pharmaceuticals and personal care products. The idea is that at these tiny trace amounts, they're disrupting the biological process in the fish and other animals. Call them endocrine disruptors.
It's really, the endocrine system is really important to your body, and it's the same with all animals, fish, birds, and stuff like that. So the worry is these pharmaceuticals and personal care products, or so-called PPCPs, are getting into the environment and infecting fish and wildlife. And what we found is that's true. It actually passes through our society and reaches rivers and streams, and they're starting to show signs in the environment in the shape of fish that are feminized, so whole populations of fish downstream from wastewater plants. There's no longer any male fish. They become hermaphroditic and have both sex functions in a single fish. And it affects at the population level and not just a variety of fishes. And the interesting thing is that it's occurring at a very, very minute concentration.
Downstream of Boulder a few years ago, they were finding hermaphroditic fish. And that really got everyone's attention because Boulder has an excellent wastewater treatment plant. And so the question was, what was going on here? And it turned out to be these very tiny amounts of things. Part per trillion is a few grains of sand in millions of gallons of water that we treat every day. And yet that's enough to impact the growth of the fish.
The good news is that there are several solutions and things we can do to make our water cleaner and to keep these endocrine disruptors from getting into the environment.
One of the things that everyone can do up in Summit County is use the drug take-back boxes that are available in the city markets, both in Dillon and Breckenridge, because use of those will remove those from our water system. We've removed 725 pounds of pharmaceuticals from Summit County water supply just with people using the drug take-back boxes. That's an amazing amount. That's a city market. That's an amazing amount. And we're really happy that people are starting to use these take-back boxes. Make sure you never flush your pharmaceuticals down the sink or the toilet, because that will be a direct line into your water systems and come to the treatment plant and potentially not be removed.
Three main types of chemicals that we seem to be getting through our wastewater plants here in Summit County and getting into our waters are antibiotics, blood pressure medication, and hormones. Hormones probably from birth control and those kind of things.
Never, never, never flush anything down the toilet. And along those lines, too, goes with pesticides and paint products, not putting household hazardous waste down the sink or into the toilets either. Because that also is a direct way to go into our water systems. Just like the take-back bins, we have a way to take back your paints and your pesticides at the Summit County Resource Allocation Park. There's no need for them to go into the water or into the environment. Some other things that we are working on with the Don't Flush campaign is trying to encourage people to use their thinking cap whenever they're shopping, called smart shopping. So reading the labels on products and understanding what's in your products. What are the common things that you would see in a personal care product that we should be aware of, or in pharmaceuticals? Like parabens is one thing that I know all about, because I'm always trying to teach people to avoid parabens because they're known to cause cancer, and they can be really bad for our bodies but also for the environment. So parabens is one. What are some other things? You said fragrances.
Fragrances is one.
These are synthetic fragrances, really.
Exactly.
Synthetic chemicals. Okay.
They always put those on the ingredients list, so you can look for that. A lot of soaps and things like that have triclosan in it.
Triclosan.
And so that's a good thing to avoid, and they create some antimicrobial activity, so they make bacteria resistant to antibacterial things, superbacteria.
The things we talked about today are really coming from data that you've been working on collecting or sampling from the wastewater treatment plant. Can you tell us about that?
3 wastewater treatment plants in Summit County volunteered to participate in the EPA pilot project to understand more about what is going on with these pharmaceuticals and personal care products in the water. We take samples from the influent in the water that's coming into the plant and the water that's exiting the plant, and we're analyzing 150 different analytes to determine what are we seeing. Are we seeing changes between the effluent and the influent? And what kind of removal efficiency are we getting, even though these plants were not set up to remove pharmaceuticals from the environment?
I'm Jen Santry with the High Country Conservation Center. I hope you enjoyed touring the wastewater treatment plant here in Silverthorne, and you learned a lot about how we can preserve our fish and our aquatic life here in Summit County. For more information about the pharmaceutical take-back program and personal care products, check out our website at highcountryconservation.org. Remember, don't flush your pharmaceuticals, and I'll see you next time on The Green Show.